Bring it on, One-Eyed Willie.
Welcome back, friends. In this Lord of the Rings Online Beginner's Guide, we are going to be taking a closer look at the Rune Keeper.
The Rune Keeper is a master of the powers of ancient runes. The magical qualities of these secret words can be used to turn the elements against his foes or inspire his allies to continue the fight against the forces of the enemy.
Equipped with an arcane Gwent deck and a can-do attitude, the Rune Keeper is a fantastic class for those looking to play a more classic approach to the MMO wizard or cleric. But before we dive in, a huge thank you to all the new and returning subscribers. Thank you for being here. My intention for these beginner's guides is to not only showcase a class of Lotro, but to help any new or returning players that may be struggling to get a class off the ground. So let's get started. Only the elder races of Middle-earth can become a Rune Keeper, and regardless of what you choose, they are all viable. My advice? Play what you love. Okay, the dwarves. You could be a sage to the House of Durin, mystic craftsman and relic keeper to the Kingdom of Erebor, or arcane blacksmith to the dwarves of the Blue Mountains, whose family is steeped in the art of enchantment.
Enchantment, 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 enchantment.
Or maybe you have dreams of breaking canon and playing as a Mordor dwarf, whose story is about as awesome as smashing your in a screen door. Regardless, the dwarves are a fine choice for the Rune Keeper and come equipped with the following bonuses. And now for the elves. Elegant and fair, you could be the long-lost son or daughter of Celebrimbor, or a wandering arcane savant of Lothlorien, whose family line reaches back to the first light of Valar. Or maybe you just want to have pointy ears and zap some shit.
Do it.
As always, the Elves of Middle-earth are a great choice and begin with the following bonuses. Before we jump into the spells of the Rune Keeper, let's briefly cover Attunement. Attunement is a characteristic of Rune Keepers that improves their ability to either deal damage or to heal at the expense of the other. The more battle-attuned a Rune Keeper is, indicated by the red side of the Attunement bar, the more damage their spells will do. And the more healing attuned a Rune Keeper is, the more healing they will output at the cost of damage. The Attunement bar can be relocated by pressing left control and backslash to adjust your user interface. Okay, let's jump into what you will receive at first level. The Rune Keeper begins play with the following spells. Fiery Ridicule. This is an induction spell with a casting time of 1.5 seconds that deals moderate fire damage to a single target and places a burning damage over time to your target and can stack up to 3 times. The spell also pushes your attunement by 1 bar towards damage, and it has an increase by 1% per battle attunement and sits on a 1-second cooldown. Prelude to Hope. This instant cast heal over time will become your primary stay in the fight spell. It boasts a moderate initial heal and then continues to heal your target every second for 12 seconds and adds 1 bar towards your healing attunement. Sitting on a 3-second cooldown, be sure to place this spell within easy reach because it will make all the difference between life and death in a tougher fight. Scribe Spark. This 20-meter range instant zap deals solid lightning damage to a single target and adds 1 bar towards your battle attunement. This spell is good as a follow-up to any combat spell that increases your battle attunement due to its plus 2% damage increase per battle attunement and rests on a 3-second cooldown. And finally, Shocking Words. This almighty Zeus button zaps your target for good lightning damage and stuns them. Upon casting this spell, your attunement bar resets to neutral. This bad boy sits on a 20-second cooldown and should be reserved as a combat finisher or crowd control in a group fight. The damage and stun increase depending on your current battle attunement. So now that we have our starting spells, let's talk about fighting as a Rune Keeper. Well, to be honest, there really isn't a best setup for level 1. Simply zap and burn your targets to get yourself to level 6, where you can select your class specialization, although along the way you will pick up an additional spell to throw out while leveling up. Chilling Rhetoric is a 6th-level induction spell of 0.5 seconds that deals moderate frost damage at a 30-meter range to a single target and slows their movement by 50% for 10 seconds and adds 1 towards your damage attunement. It is by no means an end-all be-all spell, but when you are grinding through the first few levels, it can speed up your combat slightly. Now let's talk about 6th level and which class color to choose from. I recommend the yellow tree. This tree is mainly to deal lightning damage to enemies. It's easy to understand and offers 2 additional spells to add to your arcane Gwent deck. The two spells are Writ of Lightning. This is another zap spell on your path to becoming Darth Runelord. This instant cast 20-meter range spell deals low lightning damage and places a stacking -5% debuff to your target against lightning. Sitting on a 1-second cooldown and adding 3 bars towards your battle attunement, this should be your fight starter spell and always applied to all enemies as often as possible. And Sustaining Bolt. Another lightning zing that deals increased damage depending on your current battle attunement and resets your attunement bar to neutral while reducing your power cost by 5% for 15 seconds and sits on a 15-second cooldown. This spell should be alternated in use with Shocking Words as both reset your attunement bar, and of the two, Shocking Words does hit much harder, but this is a good secondary if your Shocking Words is currently on cooldown. At level 7, you'll gain access to your first class trait, and you'll want to pick up Ceaseless Argument. This spell is another instant cast zippity zap that deals good lightning damage. By 8th level, you'll gain yet another lightning spell, Shocking Touch. This instant spell deals solid lightning damage and dazes your target for 5 seconds, but breaks early if the target takes damage and sits on a 20-second cooldown. Okay, it's at this point on your quest to become the next Sith Lord that we can cover rotation. Start off with Prelude to Hope before engaging to have a passive heal during the initial engagement. Then Writ of Lightning to weaken your foe by -5% mitigation to lightning, followed by Ceaseless Argument. Then Scribe Spark. These 3 lightning spells are usually more than enough, followed by Shocking Words to drop most overland content. Mix in Shocking Touch to apply a stun if needed, and finally finish off tougher enemies with Sustaining Bolt or Shocking Words. If you start to take a lot of damage, just Prelude to Hope and keep on zapping. And that's it. These spells will take you all the way to level 20 and decimate any and all enemies in your path to progress. Now, due to the fact that the Runekeeper doesn't receive a whole lot of spells as you level, and you're more front-loaded early on in your career, let's talk about virtues for a second. As always, I recommend pursuing Slayer deeds in your starting area to nab your first few virtues. And much like the Lore Master, I suggest taking Wisdom as your first virtue. It comes with a bonus to Will, Tactical Mastery, and Finesse rating, as well as a smaller passive bonus to both Physical and Tactical Mastery. It's just a solid spellcaster virtue. Beyond that, feel free to trim out your Runekeeper where you see fit. Okay, so let's get some levels, shall we? At level 14, you gain Word of Exaltation. This spell tosses a bubble on your target and briefly increases your morale, providing temporary hit points for 18 seconds and returns your attunement bar to neutral and sits on a 30-second cooldown. I'm going to be honest here, I have never had to use this spell. You can just use Prelude to Hope at this point to stay on your feet. This may be different if you're with a group, but while leveling solo, this was just fluff on my hotbar. At level 15, you will receive a letter in the mail for your first class quest. Now, I'm not going to spoil the quest for you, but the reward is very worth. This shiny new Gwent deck will drop the Shadow like 3rd period French, so do it as soon as you can. At 18th level, you gain 2 new spells, Epic for the Ages, which is a big heal with a 2.5 cast time that increases the higher your healing attunement is, and adds 3 bars towards your healing attunement on a 15-second cooldown. Again, I'm sure it's a great spell, but Prelude to Hope is just a better spell while on the move, so this spell can be reserved for that oh shit moment. And Scribe a New Ending. This spell removes up to 1 disease, wound, fear, or poison from the target on an 8-second cooldown. This is pretty straightforward. Use this to remove those pesky dots or debuffs your enemies are so fond of. And finally, at level 20, you gain access to 4 new spells. Final Word is an instant cast that interrupts inductions being cast at you on a 20-second cooldown. Break the Bond shakes off dazes, stuns, and Fellowship maneuver stuns and recovers from being knocked down, but not from dread or full immobilization effect. Nothing Truly Ends is a 5-second induction spell that revives a downed ally, bringing them back from the brink with 30% of their morale or hit points and no power or mana, and prevents them from being revived again for 30 seconds. And finally, Speak No Evil. This spell removes 1 tier of up to 3 different corruption effects from the target and sits on a 20-second cooldown. I was a little surprised at how few skills or spells the Runekeeper received as I leveled to 20. Compared to the Warden, it's night and day. But as a Runekeeper, you gain everything you need to Sith Lord your way to 20 very early on. The Rune Keeper is the classic magic user of mmorpgs, a spell-hurling nightmare armed to the teeth with shiny Zeus buttons that can bring even the mightiest of villains to their knees without ever breaking a sweat. If you're looking to zap your way to victory while tossing out heals to keep yourself and party members alive, look no further than the Rune Keeper. I want to apologize for the length of time it took for this video to be finished. Sometimes real life can be a bitch. As always, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like to prelude the algorithm and consider subscribing to Zap the Shadow. And have a wonderful day. Goodbye.